For the love of all that is holy and unholy, someone tell me why there's a human standing outside our atmospheric containment chamber and why they look bored. Commander Zix's voice cracked with disbelief as he stared at the security feed. We deployed the fear gas 10 minutes ago, sir, Lieutenant Vrax replied, his three eyes blinking in asynchronous confusion. The human should be experiencing hallucinations intense enough to liquefy the courage centers of any sentient being in the known galaxy. Commander Zix squinted at the monitor. The human, a stocky figure with short, bristling hair and a face that looked carved from stone, was leaning against the wall, examining his fingernails. After a moment, the human looked directly at the camera, smiled, and gave what Zix's xenocultural database identified as a thumbs-up gesture. Is the audio feed working? Zix demanded. A technician nodded, clicking several buttons. The human's voice filled the command center. Hey guys, just checking if this space poison is supposed to do something, or if you're just trying to set the mood. Kinda smells like my uncle's basement apartment in Newark. You know, minus the mildew and questionable life choices. Silence fell across the command center. 27 different alien species represented on the bridge, and not one knew what to say. Alex Kowalski had been having a pretty terrible day even before the aliens abducted him. His apartment building's air conditioning had failed during the worst heat wave in decades. His boss had called at 5 a.m. to inform him that the project deadline had been moved up by 2 weeks. And to top it all off, his favorite coffee shop had permanently closed, replaced by yet another soulless chain store that specialized in overpriced, under-roasted beans. So, when a tractor beam yanked him off his balcony while he was trying to enjoy his subpar replacement coffee, Alex had merely sighed and muttered, "Yeah, that tracks." After the obligatory disorientation of being transported through space-time, Alex found himself in what appeared to be an overly dramatic hallway, all sleek metal and pulsing lights that wouldn't have looked out of place in a sci-fi B-movie. He'd been left alone for approximately 17 minutes before the air vents hissed and released a greenish mist. Alex had lived in 6 major cities, 3 industrial towns, and had worked briefly at a chemical processing plant. He'd experienced New York subway platforms in August, Los Angeles smog so thick you could chew it, and the unique bouquet of the Chicago River after a heavy rain. The alien's fear gas was honestly kind of pleasant by comparison. He watched with mild interest as the gas swirled around him, occasionally taking an experimental sniff. It reminded him of a combination of burning tires, rotten eggs, and that odd smell his refrigerator produced after a 3-week vacation. Nostalgic, really. What's happening? Why isn't the human writhing in existential terror? Commander Zix demanded, his exoskeleton clicking in agitation. Chief Science Officer Quar floated forward, her gelatinous form rippling with concern. I've analyzed the compound again, Commander. It's definitely the same neurological terror agent that caused the Hoplite Federation to surrender in the Orion conflict. This shouldn't be possible. And yet, Zix gestured dramatically at the screen, the human appears to be whistling. Indeed, Alex had begun whistling an off-key rendition of Sweet Home Alabama, occasionally pausing to take a deep breath of the fear gas as if savoring a fine wine. Sir, Communications Officer Blixar's appendages trembled as she spoke. The human is requesting to speak with whoever's in charge. He says, and I quote, I've had worse family reunions, but this meet and greet is getting boring. Can we move this along? I've got a deadline at work. Commander Zix's face tentacles curled in frustration. Fine. Bring the human to the interrogation chamber. And someone get me the comprehensive file on human physiology. There must be some explanation for this. Alex was escorted down a corridor by 2 aliens that resembled oversized praying mantises with iridescent shells. They chittered nervously whenever he looked at them directly. So, you guys abduct people often, or am I special? Alex asked conversationally. The guards remained silent, mandibles clicking anxiously. Silent treatment, huh? That's cool. My ex was big on that too. Alex shrugged. Just so you know, if this is about probing, I'm going to need dinner first. I'm not that kind of human. One of the guards made a sound that might have been the alien equivalent of choking on its own saliva. They arrived at a chamber that screamed evil mastermind's lair, so loudly it was almost comical. Dramatic lighting? Check. Unnecessarily complex chair with restraints? Check. Ominous-looking control panel with blinking lights? Double check. Please recline in the examination apparatus, the taller guard instructed in a stilted monotone. Alex eyed the chair dubiously. Yeah, no thanks. I'll stand. Bad back, you know how it is. He leaned casually against the wall instead. So, who's running this circus? The door hissed open, and a tall, imposing figure glided in. The alien had the general shape of a humanoid but seemed to be composed of overlapping plates of chitinous material. Its head bore 3 large compound eyes and a cluster of writhing tentacles where a mouth should be. "I am Commander Zix of the Galactic Hegemony," the alien announced, its voice carrying an artificial quality that suggested it was being processed through some sort of translator. "You will identify yourself, human." "Alex Kowalski, underpaid software developer and amateur disappointment to my parents," Alex replied with a mock salute. "Nice place you've got here. The whole Terror Factory vibe is really working for you." Commander Zix's eye stalks twitched. "You should be incapacitated with fear. The gas we deployed contains compounds that target the amygdala and hypothalamus, triggering the most primal terrors dormant within your species' collective unconscious." Alex scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Yeah, about that. Not to be rude, but your fear gas smells like Tuesday in New Jersey. I grew up downwind from a tire fire and a sewage treatment plant. You're gonna have to try harder than some stinky air." "Impossible," Zix whispered, tentacles writhing faster. "The compound has been tested on over 300 sentient species. It has a 100% efficacy rate." "First time for everything," Alex shrugged. "Look, can we speed this up? I've got a project due and my boss is already on my case." In the observation room adjacent to the interrogation chamber, the alien command staff watched in growing dismay. "Perhaps the human's olfactory system is defective," suggested Weapons Officer Drac, his crystalline structure pulsing with confused energy. "No," Chief Science Officer Quor replied, her gelatinous form undulating anxiously. "Our scans show the human sensory systems are functioning perfectly. The gas is entering his respiratory system, binding to receptors and traveling to the brain. But instead of triggering panic, it's what?" Zix demanded. "It's registering as familiar," Quor said, sounding bewildered. "The human's brain is processing these toxins as known chemical signatures, not as threats. There's no fear response because the human recognizes these compounds." Lieutenant Vrax made a sound like a balloon deflating. "Are you suggesting that the human's natural environment contains these toxins? The ones we specifically engineered to create terror?" "Worse," Quor replied. "I'm suggesting that the human's environment contains compounds far more noxious than our fear gas, and they've adapted to them." A horrified silence fell over the observation room. Back in the interrogation chamber, Commander Zix was adjusting his approach. "Human. Alex, we are conducting research on your species. Your resilience is unexpected." "Yeah, I get that a lot," Alex replied, examining an alien device on a nearby table with casual interest. "My old football coach used to say I was too stupid to know when to stay down, but I prefer to think of it as stubborn optimism." "Your homeworld," Zix continued carefully. "What are the atmospheric conditions like?" Alex laughed. "Depends where you go. Some places are pretty nice. Others?" He whistled. "Let's just say there's a reason I carry antacids everywhere. Did you know we have a river that caught fire? Multiple times?" Zix's tentacles froze mid-writhe. "Your water caught fire?" "Oh yeah, the Cuyahoga. Classic American landmark. We've also got acid rain, smog you can see from space, and this one town in Pennsylvania that's been on fire underground since 1962. "On fire? Underground?" Zix repeated weakly. "Centralia," Alex nodded. "Coal seam fire. Been burning for decades. Most people moved away, but some folks just stayed put. Humans are funny that way." Commander Zix turned to a console and rapidly input a series of commands. A holographic display sprang to life, showing Earth from orbit. "Your species has remained on your planet despite these conditions?" "Where else would we go?" Alex asked reasonably. "Besides, we're working on it. Kind of. Sometimes. When it's politically convenient." Zix stared at the hologram, then back at Alex. "And your species thrives in these conditions?" "Thrives might be overselling it," Alex admitted. "But we get by, adapt, overcome, complain on social media, the human way." In the observation room, the alien command staff was reviewing Earth's atmospheric data with mounting horror. "These readings can't be accurate," Weapons Officer Drac insisted. "No sentient species could evolve in such a toxic soup." "The data is verified," Quor replied, her gelatinous form now a sickly yellowish color that indicated extreme distress. "The human homeworld contains millions of synthetic compounds, many highly toxic, plus naturally occurring substances that would devastate most sentient life." "And they just live in it?" Lieutenant Vrax asked, incredulous. "Not only that," Quor continued, "but they appear to have deliberately created many of these toxins through their industrial processes. then continue to live alongside them. They've adapted physiologically and psychologically to conditions that would drive any other species to madness or extinction. By the cosmic void, Vrax whispered. What kind of nightmare world produces such beings? Alex was getting bored with the interrogation. Commander Zix had fallen into a contemplative silence, occasionally making notes on a translucent tablet. So, Alex ventured, what's the plan here? Probe me, dissect me, make me watch your version of reality TV? Because I should warn you, I once binged 14 straight hours of Storage Wars, so my tolerance for mindless entertainment is pretty high. Zix's eye stalks refocused on Alex. Your species presents a unique problem, human. You are not supposed to be resistant to our most effective weapon. Story of my life, Alex sighed. Always disappointing alien overlords. My mother would be so proud. You misunderstand, Zix said slowly. This is not disappointment. This is concern. If your species can withstand our fear gas, what else might you be immune to? What environmental horrors have you endured that have made you so resilient? I mean, have you tried the Philadelphia subway system? Alex quipped. That'll build character fast. Zix didn't seem to get the joke. We have been monitoring your species for some time, preparing for eventual contact. But this resistance was unforeseen. It suggests we have underestimated you. People tend to do that, Alex agreed. It's our secret superpower, right up there with turning any food into a sandwich and finding ways to avoid jury duty. The door to the interrogation chamber slid open, and a new alien entered. This one resembling a collection of luminous tentacles arranged in a vaguely humanoid shape. It floated rather than walked, leaving a faint trail of bioluminescence in its wake. Supreme Counselor Orb, Zix said, immediately straightening to attention. I wasn't expecting you to join us personally. The situation warrants it, the glowing entity replied, its voice resonating oddly in the chamber. Our intelligence on humans requires significant revision. The Supreme Counselor turned its attention to Alex, who had the unsettling feeling of being scanned from the inside out. Human, Orb addressed him directly. Your species has survived conditions that would exterminate most sentient life. You have endured atmospheric toxins, radiation, biological warfare, and self-inflicted environmental catastrophes. And yet, here you stand, seemingly unaffected by our most potent psychological weapon. Alex shrugged. What doesn't kill you makes you stranger, as my therapist likes to say. Indeed. Orb's tentacles pulsed with light. Tell me, Alex Kowalski, what do humans fear, if not the primal terrors we have engineered? Alex considered this for a moment. Student loan debt, commitment, the thought that we peaked in high school, it varies. He paused. Oh, and clowns. Lots of people are scared of clowns. Clowns? Zix repeated, clearly unfamiliar with the concept. Yeah, you know, painted faces, big shoes, creepy laughs. No? Cultural thing, I guess. Orb's tentacles rippled in what might have been amusement. Fascinating. Your species fears social constructs more than existential threats. We're complicated, Alex agreed. Also, can I use the bathroom? Your fear gas goes right through the human digestive system. After Alex had been escorted to what passed for alien facilities, an experience he would later describe as like peeing in a lava lamp while being watched by curious squid, he was brought to a new chamber. This one resembled a conference room, with a large table surrounded by various seating arrangements designed to accommodate different alien physiologies. Supreme Counselor Orb and Commander Zix were waiting, along with several other aliens Alex hadn't seen before. Please, be seated. Orb gestured to a chair that looked almost normal, if you ignored the slight pulsing motion it made. Thanks, Alex said, cautiously lowering himself onto the chair. So, is this the part where you tell me we come in peace? Or the part where you announce plans to harvest my organs? Just trying to set expectations here. Neither, Orb replied. This is where we discuss the implications of your species' unexpected resilience and what it means for galactic relations. Ah, Alex nodded sagely. Bureaucracy. Some things really are universal. Indeed. Orb's tentacles pulsed with light. The galactic hegemony has existed for 30,000 of your Earth years. In that time, we have encountered and assimilated over 700 sentient species. Each has brought unique attributes to our collective, but none, not one, has displayed the environmental resilience of humanity. We're like cockroaches that way, Alex offered. Except with Instagram accounts. Commander Zix made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh, quickly disguised as a cough. Our standard protocol for species integration begins with a demonstration of our superior technology and weaponry, Orb continued. The fear gas was meant to be that demonstration, a non-lethal but overwhelming display of our advanced capabilities. Yeah, about that. Alex scratched his head. Not to be rude, but if your big scary weapon is basically Ode to New Jersey, you might want to reconsider your approach. Precisely the issue at hand, Orb agreed. Your immunity suggests that conventional methods of species subjugation would be problematic with humans. Alex straightened in his chair. Wait, subjugation? So this was supposed to be an invasion? More of a scheduled integration, Zix offered diplomatically. Most species are eager to join the hegemony after experiencing our technological superiority. Uh-huh. Alex crossed his arms. And if they're not eager? An uncomfortable silence fell across the room. I see, Alex said. So the plan was, gas Earth, watch everyone freak out, then swoop in as saviors offering membership in your space club. Does that about sum it up? A crude but essentially accurate assessment, Orb admitted, its luminosity dimming slightly in what might have been embarrassment. And now you're having second thoughts because your scary gas made me nostalgic for my hometown? It raises concerns, Zix said carefully. If our fear gas is ineffective, other methods might be similarly compromised. And the cost-benefit analysis of a full military engagement with a species that can thrive in toxic environments is unfavorable. Alex leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. Let me get this straight. You're not invading Earth because you're worried we might be too much trouble? The hegemony prefers efficient assimilation, Orb stated. Prolonged resistance is inefficient. That's the most backhanded compliment I've ever received, Alex laughed. So what happens now? Supreme Counselor Orb's tentacles performed an elaborate dance that the translator didn't attempt to interpret. Now, Orb said finally, we reassess. Your species presents unique challenges, but also unique opportunities. The hegemony has encountered toxic worlds before, but never a species that thrived despite toxicity rather than in symbiosis with it. We've had practice, Alex shrugged. Earth wasn't always such a mess, but we're adaptable. Indeed, Orb's voice carried a note of what might have been respect. This adaptability is precisely what interests us. The hegemony controls vast territories, including worlds too toxic for our member species to colonize effectively. Your people could potentially inhabit these worlds. Alex raised an eyebrow. So instead of conquering us, you want to hire us as toxic waste management? A crude but not inaccurate summation, Commander Zix confirmed, though we would prefer to frame it as a mutually beneficial alliance. Your species gains access to interstellar travel and technology. We gain access to your unique physiological resilience. Huh. Alex considered this. And if we say no, Orb's tentacles stilled. That would be regrettable. But the hegemony has learned to be patient. We have waited millennia for species to evolve to suitable integration points. We can wait for humanity to reach a more amenable perspective. That's diplomatically terrifying, Alex noted. So what? I'm supposed to go back to Earth and tell everyone, hey, aliens are real, and they want us to clean up their toxic dump planets? Not exactly, Zix interjected. We propose a more gradual introduction. You would serve as an initial contact point, a liaison between humanity and the hegemony. Me? Alex laughed. I'm a software developer who can barely liaise with my own relatives at Thanksgiving. Why would you pick me? Your resilience to our fear gas was not the only test, Orb revealed. Throughout this encounter, you have displayed remarkable psychological stability. Most beings, when abducted by an unknown species, experience severe trauma. You adapted almost immediately. That's called dissociation, and my therapist says it's not healthy, Alex retorted. Nevertheless, it is useful, Orb countered. You possess the rare ability to normalize the abnormal, a trait that would serve you well as an interspecies ambassador. Alex stared at the assembled aliens, waiting for the punchline. When none came, he sighed deeply. So let me get this straight. You kidnapped me, tried to gas me with your fear toxin, and now you're offering me a job as an alien ambassador because I didn't freak out enough? Correct, Zix confirmed. That's the worst job interview technique I've ever experienced, Alex said. And I once had a prospective employer ask me to debug code while standing in a kiddie pool filled with ice water. Yet effective, Orb noted. We know more about you now than weeks of conventional observation would have revealed. That's fair, I guess, Alex conceded. So what's the pay like for human ambassador to the toxic waste aliens? 3 months later, Alex sat in his new office aboard the hegemony diplomatic vessel Celestial Mediator, trying to explain the concept of weekend to his alien administrative assistant. No, Blixar, humans don't hibernate for 2 days, Alex sighed. We just don't work. Well, we're not supposed to work, though plenty of humans do anyway because capitalism is its own special form of alien invasion. Fascinating. Blixar's mandibles clicked in what Alex had come to recognize as her version of intense interest. And this weekend is a social construct, not a biological necessity? Exactly. Though try telling that to anyone who's ever experienced a Sunday morning hangover. His communication console chimed, indicating an incoming transmission from Earth. Alex swiveled in his chair, custom designed to accommodate human physiology, while still looking sufficiently alien and important, and activated the screen. General Olivia Barnes, the United Nations hastily appointed Director of Extraterrestrial Affairs, appeared on screen. Her perpetually stern expression had softened marginally in the months since first contact, though she still looked like someone who regularly ate bureaucrats for breakfast. Ambassador Kowalski, she greeted him formally. The Security Council has reviewed the hegemony's latest proposal regarding the Proxima Centauri outpost. And? Alex prompted. Are they still hung up on the toxic waste processing facilities? Actually, they're surprisingly receptive, Barnes replied, allowing herself a small smile. Turns out when you phrase it as humanity's unique opportunity to demonstrate superior environmental remediation technology rather than alien garbage collectors, people get on board. The power of marketing, Alex nodded sagely. I told you we should rebrand it. You did, Barnes acknowledged. Though I'm still not sure how I feel about the slogan, Earth Galaxy's toughest cleaning crew. It's growing on me, Alex grinned. So we're good to proceed? With caution, Barnes emphasized. The preliminary exchange of scientific personnel has been approved. 20 of our environmental specialists will travel to the Hegemony Research Station on Tau Ceti, and will host 15 of their xenobiologists at our new facility in Antarctica. Progress, Alex declared, leaning back in his chair. And the other thing? Barnes's expression tightened. The Security Council is still divided on sharing the full extent of Earth's environmental damage. Some members feel it would position humanity as irresponsible stewards. They're not wrong, Alex shrugged. But the hegemony already knows most of it. Their atmospheric sensors picked up everything from our carbon emissions to the microplastics in the Pacific. Hiding it now would just make us look sneaky on top of destructive. Politics, Barnes sighed. Never simple, even when dealing with tentacled aliens. Speaking of, Alex checked his schedule. I've got a meeting with the Supreme Counselor in 15 minutes. Apparently, they've discovered something interesting about human musical patterns and want to discuss cultural exchange opportunities. Try not to give them Disney, Barnes deadpanned. The last thing we need is an interstellar copyright dispute. After completing his call with General Barnes, Alex took a moment to reflect on the bizarre turn his life had taken. 3 months ago, he'd been a disgruntled software developer whose biggest concern was making rent. Now he was negotiating interspecies treaties and had an apartment, technically a human habitat simulation chamber, with a view of the stars. The irony wasn't lost on him that humanity's ticket to the galactic community hadn't been their art, philosophy, or technology, but their stubborn ability to survive in a polluted environment of their own making. It was like being admitted to an exclusive club because you could eat a gas station hot dog without getting sick. His musings were interrupted by a chime from the door. Enter! He called out, still not quite used to having a voice-activated door. It made him feel like he was in a Star Trek episode. Commander Zix glided in, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the ship's lights. Over the past months, Alex had learned to read the commander's expressions surprisingly well for someone whose face consisted primarily of compound eyes and writhing tentacles. You look worried, Alex noted. What's up? Did Supreme Counselor Orb decide I need another cultural sensitivity workshop after the hot sauce incident? No, Zix replied, mandibles clicking in what Alex now recognized as amusement, though the culinary staff is still attempting to remove the stains from the ceiling of the diplomatic dining hall. In my defense, Alex said, raising his hands, I clearly warned everyone that human condiments can be intense. Indeed, Zix's eye stalks bobbed in acknowledgement. However, I come on a more serious matter. Our long-range scouts have returned from the survey of your solar system's outer reaches. And? Alex prompted, sitting up straighter. The hegemony had agreed to conduct a thorough survey of the Sol system as part of the initial diplomatic exchange. They've discovered something concerning, Zix said, his voice dropping to a lower register. A debris field that suggests extensive mining operations in your Kuiper belt. Operations that, according to your world's official records, do not exist. Alex blinked in surprise. That can't be right. We've barely managed to send probes past Mars. There's no way we've got secret mining operations in the Kuiper belt. The evidence suggests otherwise, Zix insisted, producing a small device that projected a holographic image in the center of the office. It showed what appeared to be asteroids with distinctive bore marks and abandoned equipment floating in the void of space. What the hell? Alex murmured, standing to get a better look at the projection. More concerning, Zix continued, is that the technology signature does not match known human technological capabilities. Yet the operations bear markers consistent with human industrial patterns. That's impossible, Alex insisted. Unless... His voice trailed off as his mind raced through possibilities, each more outlandish than the last. Unless what? Zix prompted. Unless we're not the only ones from Earth who've made contact with alien civilizations, Alex said slowly, the implications dawning on him. Someone else, some other human group, might have been out there before us. Zix's tentacles writhed in what Alex had come to recognize as the alien equivalent of a nod. The Supreme Counselor has reached a similar conclusion. It appears the hegemony's first contact with humanity might not have been first contact after all. Alex stared at the hologram, at the unmistakable signs of human industrial activity where none should exist. A slow smile spread across his face. Well, he said finally, this job just got a lot more interesting. Later that evening, as Alex prepared for his meeting with Supreme Counselor Orb, he couldn't stop thinking about the implications of Zix's revelation. If humans had already made contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, secret contact, it changed everything about Earth's position in the upcoming negotiations. His quarters aboard the Celestial Mediator had been specially designed to accommodate human needs while introducing him to hegemony aesthetics. The result was a strange blend of minimalist human furniture with alien architectural elements that seemed to pulse with subtle bioluminescence. It was like living inside a high-tech aquarium, designed by someone who'd only seen Earth dwellings in old magazines. As Alex adjusted his formal diplomatic attire, another compromise between human business wear and hegemony ceremonial garments that made him look like a corporate executive who'd fallen into a jellyfish tank, his communication console chimed with an incoming message from a restricted channel. Curious, he accepted the transmission. Instead of a face or a name, the screen displayed only a simple text message. The Kuiper Belt is just the beginning. There's more to humanity's story than either you or the hegemony knows. Meet me at Observation Deck C7 at 0200 hours ship time. Come alone. The message vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving no trace in the communication logs. Alex stared at the empty screen, a mixture of excitement and apprehension coursing through him. Either this was an elaborate prank, unlikely given the hegemony's limited understanding of human humor, or someone aboard the ship knew something about the mysterious Kuiper Belt operations. Well, he muttered to himself, if being abducted by aliens taught me anything, it's that you might as well lean into the weirdness. He finished dressing, made a mental note to visit Observation Deck C7 later, and headed to his meeting with the Supreme Counselor, where he would pretend he knew nothing about secret messages or clandestine rendezvous. Just another day in the life of an accidental ambassador to the stars. The meeting with Supreme Counselor Orb had gone surprisingly well. The luminous being had been fascinated by human music theory, particularly the concept of blues scales and improvisational jazz. Alex had attempted to explain why feeling blue had resulted in some of humanity's most powerful art forms, a concept that the emotionally analytical hegemony found simultaneously primitive and profound. Now, as the ship's artificial night cycle dimmed the corridor lighting to a soft amber glow, Alex made his way to Observation Deck C7. Unlike the main observation areas, this particular deck was small and tucked away in an infrequently visited section of the diplomatic vessel. Alex had to consult the ship's navigation system twice to ensure he was headed in the right direction. The observation deck was empty when he arrived, a curved space with a transparent viewport that offered a breathtaking view of distant stars. The ship was currently passing through a region of space that the hegemony called the luminous Expanse, where stellar formation was particularly active. The view reminded Alex of those deep-field Hubble images that had once made him feel small and insignificant. Now, having learned that some of those distant lights were home to civilizations that had been traversing the stars while humans were still figuring out agriculture, That feeling had only intensified. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said from behind him. "No matter how many times I see it, the vastness never ceases to humble me." Alex turned to find a human woman stepping out from a concealed alcove. She appeared to be in her 50s, with silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a severe bun, and the kind of weathered face that suggested decades of exposure to harsh environments. Her clothing was nondescript, a gray jumpsuit that bore no insignia or markings, but her bearing suggested military training. "You're human," Alex stated the obvious, momentarily thrown by the sight of another member of his species aboard the hegemony vessel. "Last time I checked," the woman replied with a dry smile. "Dr. Eliza Voss, though that name won't appear in any official records. Hegemony or Earth?" "Alex Kowalski," he offered automatically, extending his hand. Dr. Voss shook it firmly. "I know who you are, Ambassador. Your sudden elevation from software developer to interspecies diplomat caused quite a stir in certain circles." "What circles would those be?" Alex asked cautiously. "And how are you on this ship without me knowing about it? I thought I was the only human aboard." "Officially you are," Voss confirmed, turning to gaze out at the stars. "Officially I don't exist. Unofficially, I've been observing hegemony operations for the past 17 years. Alex felt his jaw drop. 17 years? That's impossible. First contact was 3 months ago. Voss's smile held no humor. First official contact, yes. But humanity's interaction with extraterrestrial civilizations began long before your impromptu abduction, Mr. Kowalski. She gestured for him to join her at the viewport. When they were both staring out at the swirling nebulae and distant stars, she continued in a lowered voice. In 1947, a research expedition in the Arctic uncovered something buried in the ice. Something that had been there for approximately 12,000 years. We didn't know it then, but it was a scout ship from an advanced civilization. Not the hegemony, but another interstellar power called the Collective. Wait, Alex interrupted. Are you telling me Roswell was real? Voss snorted. Roswell was a weather balloon. The real discoveries never made the tabloids. The point is, by the early 1950s, a small contingent of human scientists and military personnel were aware that we were not alone in the universe. By the 1970s, we had back-engineered enough technology to establish limited communications. By the 1990s, we had negotiated our first interstellar treaty, with the Collective, not the hegemony. And the Kuiper Belt mining operations? Alex prompted. Joint ventures, Voss explained. The Collective provided the technology. We provided the labor and raw materials. Earth gets advanced technology introduced gradually to prevent societal disruption. They get resources without the expense of bringing their own workforce. Alex stared at her, trying to process the implications. So, there's been a secret space program running parallel to our public one for decades? And now we've got ourselves entangled with a completely different alien civilization than the one you've been dealing with? That about sums it up, Voss confirmed. And therein lies our problem. The Collective and the hegemony are not allies. In fact, they've been locked in a Cold War for millennia, each expanding their spheres of influence while carefully avoiding direct conflict. Earth sits at a strategically valuable junction between their territories. So we're basically the alien equivalent of Cold War Berlin, Alex muttered. Fantastic. And the official governments of Earth don't know about any of this? A small number of individuals within various governments are aware of the Collective, Voss explained. But the operation has remained compartmentalized and deniable. For good reason. The public revelation of extraterrestrial contact would have been destabilizing during the Cold War, and even now poses significant societal risks. But the cat's out of the bag now, Alex pointed out. The hegemony made official contact. There are alien diplomats preparing to visit Antarctica. Precisely why I'm here, Voss said, her expression grim. The Collective views the hegemony's open contact with Earth as a violation of territorial agreements dating back centuries. They're displeased. How displeased are we talking? Like strongly worded letter displeased or interstellar war displeased? Voss's silence was answer enough. Well, shit, Alex ran a hand through his hair. And I'm guessing that telling the hegemony about the Collective's prior claim isn't an option? It would immediately identify Earth as a strategic asset rather than a curious anomaly, Voss confirmed. Right now, the hegemony sees humanity as a useful but limited species with an unusual tolerance for toxins. If they discover our connection to the Collective, they might decide a more aggressive approach to Earth is warranted. Alex leaned against the viewport railing, suddenly feeling the weight of this new responsibility. So what exactly do you want from me? I'm just a software developer who happened to be immune to alien fear gas. I'm not a diplomat or a spy, but you are humanity's official representative to the hegemony, Voss countered. And you have access that no one else has. We need you to gather intelligence on the hegemony's true intentions toward Earth while we attempt to negotiate with the collective. And if their intentions aren't friendly, then we need to be prepared, Voss said simply. The collective has provided us with certain technological advantages, but we'd prefer not to use them. Alex studied her face, looking for signs of deception. Finding none, he sighed deeply. This morning my biggest concern was explaining weekend brunch to my alien assistant. Now I'm caught in an interstellar Cold War. My therapist is going to have a field day with this. Voss almost smiled. Welcome to the reality of humanity's place in the cosmos, Mr. Kowalski. It's more complicated than anyone on Earth suspects. Clearly, Alex muttered. So what's my next move? For now, continue as you have been, Voss instructed. But pay attention to any mentions of Earth's strategic position or resource potential. The hegemony may be testing your reactions, gauging how much humans understand about galactic politics. And how do I contact you if I learn something important? Voss handed him what appeared to be an ordinary stylus. This contains a quantum-entangled communications node. Twist the cap 3 times and speak your message. I'll receive it instantaneously, regardless of distance. Very spy movie, Alex remarked, pocketing the device. Though I was kind of hoping for an exploding pen. Those are outdated, Voss replied with unexpected deadpan humor. Too many singed eyebrows in the field. A distant chime indicated the end of the ship's night cycle. The lighting in the corridors would soon begin brightening to simulate dawn. I should go, Voss said. Remember, not a word of this to anyone. The fate of Earth may depend on your discretion. No pressure, Alex muttered as Voss slipped away through a maintenance access panel he hadn't noticed before. Just the future of humanity riding on the guy who once set his microwave on fire trying to dry his socks. The next few weeks passed in a blur of diplomatic meetings, cultural exchange sessions, and surreptitious intelligence gathering. Alex found himself living a double life, the official human ambassador to the hegemony by day, and a reluctant spy by night. He learned that Supreme Counselor Orb had originally advocated for a more aggressive approach to Earth, only to be overruled by the hegemony's central authority. After the fear gas incident demonstrated humanity's unpredictable resilience, he discovered that the hegemony's interest in toxic world remediation was genuine, but also served as cover for assessing Earth's mineral resources and strategic position. Most concerning was a classified report he managed to glimpse during a meeting of the hegemony's Strategic Resources Committee. Earth's location had been marked as a Category 1 priority acquisition, with a notation about its proximity to something called the Veiled Corridor, which apparently held significant strategic value. Each discovery he dutifully reported via the quantum-entangled stylus, receiving only brief acknowledgments in return. It was like shouting into a void and hearing only distant echoes. Meanwhile, preparations for the scientific exchange programs continued. Earth's environmental specialists were undergoing final briefings before their journey to Tau Ceti, and the Antarctic facility to host the hegemony xenobiologists was nearly complete. It was during a routine briefing about the Antarctic facility that Alex noticed something odd in the architectural plans, a sublevel that didn't appear in the official designs he'd approved. When he casually inquired about it, General Barnes smoothly changed the subject, leaving Alex with the distinct impression that Earth's governments were playing their own games. The whole situation felt like a powder keg waiting for a spark, and Alex was beginning to wonder if he was the fuse. Ambassador Kowalski, a moment of your time? Alex turned to find Commander Zix approaching him in the ship's arboretum, a carefully maintained garden space designed to replicate various planetary ecosystems. Currently, it was configured to mimic an Earth forest, complete with simulated sunlight filtering through artificial leaves. Alex had taken to spending his free time here, finding comfort in the familiar sights and smells of his home planet. Commander, Alex greeted him with a nod. What can I do for you? Zix's eye stalk swiveled to ensure they were alone before he spoke. I wish to discuss something of a sensitive nature. Something that has come to my attention regarding the Kuiper Belt operations. Alex felt his pulse quicken, but maintained his composure. I was under the impression that investigation was ongoing. Officially, yes, Zix confirmed. Unofficially, our deep reconnaissance has uncovered something troubling. Evidence of collective technology signatures. Alex carefully controlled his expression. Collective? I'm not familiar with that term. Zix's tentacles writhed in what Alex had come to recognize as agitation. The Collective is another interstellar power, rival to the hegemony. If they have established operations in your solar system. He left the implication hanging. I can assure you, Alex said smoothly, that to my knowledge, Earth has had no contact with any extraterrestrial civilization prior to the hegemony. It wasn't technically a lie. To his knowledge as Alex Kowalski, software developer turned ambassador, Earth hadn't had such contact until 3 months ago. What Dr. Voss and her secret space program knew was another matter entirely. Perhaps, Zix said, clearly unconvinced. Nevertheless, the Supreme Counselor has ordered additional security measures for the upcoming scientific exchange. It would be unfortunate if the Collective were to interfere with our developing relationship with Earth. Absolutely, Alex agreed, trying to sound appropriately concerned rather than increasingly alarmed. Is there anything I should do to help ensure security? Simply be vigilant, Zix advised. Report any unusual communications or encounters. The Collective has been known to employ human agents in the past on other worlds. Other human worlds? Alex couldn't help asking, genuinely surprised. Zix's eye stalks froze momentarily, as if realizing he'd said too much. A figure of speech. I meant humanoid species similar to your own. But Alex wasn't buying it. The implication was clear. There were other human populations out there among the stars, and the hegemony knew about them. Which raised an even more disturbing question. If humans existed elsewhere in the galaxy, where had they come from? Was Earth truly humanity's origin point, or was their history far more complex than anyone had imagined? These questions would have to wait. For now, he needed to warn Dr. Voss that the hegemony suspected collective involvement in the solar system. I'll keep my eyes open, Alex promised. After all, Earth's partnership with the hegemony is our top priority. Another technical truth. Earth's relationship with the hegemony was indeed his priority. Ensuring that relationship didn't lead to Earth becoming a battleground in an interstellar Cold War was definitely at the top of his to-do list. Later that night, alone in his quarters with the communications jamming field he'd been secretly installing activated, Alex twisted the cap of the quantum-entangled stylus 3 times. Voss, we have a problem, he said quietly. The hegemony knows about the Collective's presence in the solar system. They're increasing security for the scientific exchange. Also, Zix let something slip about other human worlds. Is there something else I should know about humanity's place in the galaxy? There was a long pause before the stylus vibrated with an incoming response, longer than any previous acknowledgement. Security breach confirmed. Accelerating timetable. Be prepared for extraction within 48 hours. Regarding other humans, history is always more complicated than the victor's record. Stand by for further instructions. Extraction? Alex stared at the stylus. That hadn't been part of any discussion. He was supposed to gather intelligence, not abandon his post. And what did Voss mean about history and victors? Before he could formulate a response, his quarters communication system chimed with an incoming transmission. Alex quickly pocketed the stylus and deactivated the jamming field. Supreme Counselor Orb's luminous form appeared on the screen, pulsing with what Alex had learned to recognize as urgency. Ambassador Kowalski, your presence is required immediately in the command center. We have received troubling communications from Earth. What's happened? Alex asked, already moving toward the door. It appears, Orb said gravely, that an unknown vessel has entered Earth orbit and is demanding to speak with representatives of both humanity and the hegemony. They claim to be from the Collective. The game, it seemed, was up. The command center of the Celestial Mediator was in a state of controlled chaos when Alex arrived. Holographic displays showed multiple perspectives of Earth orbit, where an elegant vessel unlike anything Alex had seen before hung against the backdrop of his blue home planet. Unlike the hegemony's preference for biomechanical designs with sweeping organic curves, this ship featured crystalline geometric patterns that seemed to shift and reconfigure even as he watched. It was beautiful in an alien way, like a cathedral made of living glass. Ambassador Kowalski, Supreme Counselor Orb greeted him, tentacles pulsing rapidly. The situation has escalated. The Collective vessel is demanding joint talks with Earth's governments and the hegemony delegation. What exactly is the Collective? Alex asked, maintaining his pretense of ignorance while trying to gather as much information as possible. Commander Zix mentioned them briefly, but I'm not familiar with the details. Orb's luminosity dimmed slightly, the equivalent, Alex had learned, of a frown. The Collective is a rival interstellar power, Orb explained. Where the hegemony believes in structured integration of species under centralized governance, the Collective promotes a more anarchic approach. Independent worlds loosely aligned through technology sharing and mutual defense. Sounds potentially attractive to humans, Alex noted carefully. Perhaps, Orb acknowledged. But the collective's interest in Earth cannot be coincidence. They must have been monitoring our interactions. Or they've been watching Earth for some time, Alex suggested, testing the waters. Orb's tentacles froze momentarily. That would be concerning. It would suggest prior contact, which your world's records do not indicate. Maybe our records aren't as complete as we thought, Alex said. After all, we just discovered mining operations in the Kuiper Belt that no one on Earth officially knew about. Before Orb could respond, Commander Zix approached rapidly. Supreme Counselor, the collective vessel is transmitting again. They're requesting Ambassador Kowalski by name. All eyes, compound, stalked, gelatinous and otherwise, turned to Alex. Me? Alex asked, genuinely surprised. Why would they ask for me specifically? Unknown, Zix replied. But they claim to have information vital to both humanity and the hegemony regarding Earth's true history and strategic importance. Alex felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Whatever game Voss and her people had been playing, it had just accelerated dramatically. Put them through, Orb commanded. The central holographic display shifted, and Alex found himself facing a being that appeared to be composed entirely of interlocking geometric shapes that shimmered with internal light. It took him a moment to realize he was looking at some kind of environmental suit or exoskeleton rather than the being itself. Ambassador Kowalski. The being's voice was melodic, with harmonics that seemed to resonate on multiple frequencies simultaneously. I am Emissary Tellem of the Collective. We have been monitoring your interactions with the hegemony with great interest. Why me? Alex asked directly. I'm just a software developer who happened to be immune to fear gas. The geometric patterns of the emissary's exoskeleton shifted in what might have been amusement. You undersell yourself, Ambassador. Your genetic profile is of particular interest to us. My what now? Alex blurted out. Your genetic profile contains markers consistent with the progenitor strain, the original human genome before the schism. It is exceedingly rare among Earth humans. That is why you were selected, both by us and unknowingly by the hegemony. Alex's mind raced. Progenitor strain? Schism? What the hell was Tellem talking about? Emissary Tellem, Supreme Counselor Orb interrupted, tentacles writhing agitatedly. These claims regarding human genetics are both unsubstantiated and irrelevant to current diplomatic protocols. On the contrary, Tellem countered smoothly, they are central to the matter at hand. Earth is not merely another developing world suitable for hegemony integration. It is a restoration site, one of the original human homeworlds, seeded after the Schism Wars 90,000 years ago. Its inhabitants are protected under the ancient accords, which both the Collective and the hegemony are signatories to. A stunned silence fell over the command center. That's impossible, Zix finally stated. Human civilization on Earth is barely 10,000 years old. There is no evidence of prior advanced development. Because it was deliberately reset, Tellem explained. As were all restoration sites after the devastation of the Schism Wars. The surviving human factions agreed to return to pre-technological states and evolve naturally, free from the corrupting influence of advanced technology that had nearly driven the species to extinction. Alex's head was spinning. If what Tellem was saying was true, then human history, the entire narrative of humanity's rise from hunter-gatherers to civilization, was merely the latest chapter in a much longer story. You expect us to believe, Orb began skeptically, that humans were once an advanced spacefaring civilization that suffered some catastrophic civil war and chose to return to primitive existence. I expect you to honor the ancient accords, Tellem replied firmly. Earth was placed under quarantine until its population naturally rediscovered spaceflight, a milestone they have now achieved. Under the accords, the choice of alignment, hegemony, collective, or independence, belongs solely to Earth's population, with full disclosure of galactic context. Alex found his voice. You're saying humans are out there, among the stars, and have been all along? That we're descendants of some fallen human empire? Not fallen, Tellem corrected. Deliberately preserved through separation. The original human civilization expanded too quickly, developed technologies they couldn't ethically manage, and fractured along ideological lines. The Schism Wars nearly destroyed them entirely. The restoration protocol was their solution. Divide the surviving population among suitable worlds, reset technological development, and allow each branch to evolve independently, preserving genetic diversity and cultural alternatives. And my genetic profile? Alex prompted. Contains markers from the original, pre-schism human genome. Such markers are rare, appearing in less than 0.01% of Earth's population. They indicate potential compatibility with certain technologies and enhancements developed before the schism. Both the hegemony and the collective have monitored Earth for such individuals. Alex turned to Orb and Zix. Is this true? Did you know about this? Restoration protocol? Orb's luminosity dimmed significantly, a clear sign of discomfort. The ancient accords do include provisions regarding certain protected worlds. However, Earth was not identified in our databases as one such world. A convenient oversight, Tellem noted sardonically, particularly given the strategic position of the Sol system near the Veiled Corridor access point. The pieces were falling into place. The hegemony hadn't approached Earth out of casual interest in humanity's toxin resistance. They wanted control of whatever this Veiled Corridor was, and integrating humanity was their way of claiming it without triggering conflict with the collective. So what happens now? Alex asked, looking between the representatives of these ancient, powerful civilizations. If Earth is under these ancient accords, what does that mean for us? It means, Tellem replied, that Earth must be fully informed of its place in galactic history and politics before making any binding alignments. It means both the hegemony and the collective must present their cases transparently, without coercion or manipulation. And if we choose neither? Alex suggested. Tellem's geometric patterns shifted in what might have been approval. Independence is always an option under the Accords. Though challenging for a newly space-capable species, it is your right. Alex crossed his arms, suddenly feeling oddly calm despite the earth-shattering revelations. Then as Earth's appointed ambassador, I formally request that both the hegemony and the collective provide full disclosure regarding humanity's history, the strategic importance of our solar system, and the exact terms of any potential alignment, to be presented to all of Earth's governments simultaneously. He paused, then added with a ghost of his usual sarcasm, and I'd also like an explanation of why your fear gas smells like New Jersey. Because honestly, that's been bothering me for months. 3 days later, Alex stood in the United Nations General Assembly Hall in New York, watching as representatives from every nation on Earth tried to process the revelations that had just been shared. On the stage beside him stood Supreme Counselor Orb, Emissary Tellem, and Dr. Eliza Voss, the latter having finally emerged from the shadows to confirm much of what Tellem had revealed about humanity's secret interactions with the collective. The evidence had been overwhelming and undeniable. Archaeological data that had never quite fit conventional human history. Genetic anomalies that defied evolutionary models. And most compelling of all, the testimonies of human colonies on distant worlds who had achieved spaceflight centuries or millennia earlier than Earth and discovered the truth of their origins. So we're basically the galaxy's greatest science experiment, one journalist summarized during the question period. Different human populations evolving independently across multiple worlds to see which approach works best. More accurately, Tellem corrected. You are the descendants of a civilization wise enough to recognize its own fatal flaws and take drastic measures to ensure its long-term survival through diversity. The Schism Wars nearly extinguished humanity entirely. The Restoration Protocol preserved not just the species, but the potential for multiple paths forward. And now we get to choose our path, Alex added. Hegemony, collective or independence, full integration into galactic society, loose alliance with autonomy, or going it alone with the knowledge we now have. A hand raised from the American delegation. What about the fear gas? You promised an explanation for that. Alex couldn't help but smile. Leave it to humans to focus on the weirdest detail. As it turns out, he explained, the fear gas was originally developed by pre-schism humans as a non-lethal weapon. The hegemony discovered and repurposed it, not realizing that certain human genetic lines, particularly those with the progenitor strain, maintained resistance. Earth's heavily industrialized regions have coincidentally produced environmental conditions that mimic components of the gas, further reinforcing that resistance in local populations. Like New Jersey, someone called out, generating a ripple of laughter across the tense assembly. Like New Jersey, Alex agreed. Turns out our polluted world gave us an unexpected advantage. Human resilience, both genetic and psychological, is our superpower. We've survived not just industrial toxins and climate disasters, but the hidden legacy of an ancient civil war that nearly ended our species. He looked out at the assembled representatives of humanity, diplomats, scientists, military personnel, and journalists from every corner of the globe. We've been handed an incredible responsibility, he continued. The choice we make now will determine humanity's future among the stars. But the important thing is that it's our choice. We're not being conquered or subjugated. We're being recognized as the descendants of a spacefaring civilization that once spanned the galaxy. Alex glanced at Orb, then at Telem, then at Voss. 3 very different approaches to humanity's future, all waiting on Earth's decision. So, he concluded with a wry smile, who would have thought that being immune to space poison because I grew up downwind from a tire fire would end up saving humanity from unknown conquest? Laughter rippled across the assembly again, tension breaking like ice in spring. In the immortal tradition of human bureaucracy, the Secretary General announced, I propose we form a committee to study our options before making any binding decisions. More laughter, but with nods of agreement. Some things were universal, it seemed, even among the stars. As the session adjourned, Alex found himself standing between Orb and Telem with Voss nearby. You realize, Telem observed, that your specific genetic profile would make you uniquely valuable to either the collective or the hegemony. Or to an independent Earth, Voss added pointedly. I'm just a software developer who happened to be immune to fear gas, Alex replied with a smile, repeating his now familiar refrain. Though I suppose I should update my resume to include accidental savior of human autonomy and guy who smelled New Jersey in space. Orb's tentacles rippled in what Alex had come to recognize as genuine amusement. Humanity's capacity for humor in the face of existential revelations is uniquely refreshing. That's us, Alex agreed, laughing in the face of cosmic horror, since at least 90,000 years ago, apparently. As the delegates filed out, discussing the implications of humanity's true history in dozens of languages, Alex took a moment to simply breathe. The future was uncertain, complex, and filled with challenges, but it was humanity's future to decide. And really, wasn't that the most human thing of all? To face the unknown with a mix of determination, adaptability, and inappropriate jokes? Smiling to himself, Alex headed toward the exit, already mentally composing the email to his therapist that would never, ever be believed. The end. You're telling me that humans, actual bipedal, mostly hairless humans from Earth, are being considered for the top spot in the Deathworld Alliance rankings? Ambassador Zixthars, that's the best joke I've heard in 3 solar cycles. Commander Alara Frost leaned back in her uncomfortable chair, designed for a species with 4 spinal columns and no concept of lumbar support. Not a joke, Ambassador. We've met all the criteria. Earth is statistically the most dangerous inhabited planet in the known galaxy, and we're the only species that not only survives there but thrives there. Preposterous, the ambassador's translator squawked, his bioluminescent spots flashing in a pattern that indicated extreme skepticism. The Morgath of Vesper 9 literally breathe sulfuric acid and eat radiation for breakfast. Yeah, but can they handle a Tuesday in Chicago? Alara countered, taking a sip from her thermos of coffee. A substance that had once caused a diplomatic incident when an alien dignitary mistook it for an industrial solvent. Which, to be fair, wasn't entirely wrong. The meeting chamber of the Galactic Deathworld Alliance headquarters buzzed with the sounds of 24 different species arguing in their native tongues. The annual ranking of Deathworld planets was more than just a prestigious title. It came with significant economic benefits, defense treaties, and exclusive technological exchange programs. For centuries, the title had been held by the various nightmare planets scattered throughout the cosmos, each home to species that had evolved through environmental pressures that would make Darwin himself wet his pants. Earth, a relative newcomer to galactic politics after only 50 years since first contact, had never cracked the top 10, until now. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Way, Alara's diplomatic attaché and Earth's foremost xenobiologist, was furiously typing on his datapad beside her. They're still not getting it, he muttered. I've submitted our full ecological assessment 3 times, and they keep flagging it as exaggerated for dramatic effect. Did you include the Australian section? Of course I included the Australian section. It's our strongest argument. Alara nodded solemnly. And the deep-sea trenches? Yes, complete with the footage of that new species of anglerfish we discovered last month. The one with the paralyzing neurotoxin that can stop a heart in 0.3 seconds, she finished. Good. That should get their attention. Across the chamber, A reptilian being with scales that shifted colors like an LED light display was gesturing wildly toward the Earth delegation. General Kraz Thul of the Saurian Imperium had been particularly vocal about keeping Earth out of the top rankings. "The humans are soft," his translator boomed. "Their skeletal structure is internal. Their skin tears with minimal pressure. They have no natural armor, limited sensory capabilities, and require constant hydration. How can such a fragile species claim to hail from a true death world?" Alara stood, straightening her uniform. As the appointed representative of the United Earth Coalition, it was her job to defend humanity's position, a job she took perhaps a bit too much pleasure in. "Permission to approach the central podium?" she asked, her voice carrying across the chamber. The Arbiter, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate hovering vessel, pulsed in acknowledgement. "Permission granted, Commander Frost of Earth. You may address the Alliance." Alara made her way to the center of the circular chamber, her military boots clicking sharply against the polished obsidian floor. The Earth delegation had learned early on that a bit of theatricality went a long way in galactic politics. "Distinguished members of the Deathworld Alliance," she began, her voice steady and clear. "I understand your skepticism. By the physical standards of many of your species, humans appear unremarkable. We lack natural weapons. We can't breathe underwater or survive extreme temperatures without technological assistance. We don't have redundant organs. Well, except the kidneys. And honestly, we really need both of those." A ripple of translated chuckles moved through the chamber. "But I submit to you that Earth's placement at the top of this year's rankings isn't because humans are the physically toughest species. It's because Earth itself is trying to kill us in more ways than any other inhabited planet in the galaxy. And yet somehow, we've built civilizations anyway." She gestured, and Marcus activated the holographic display. A three-dimensional rendering of Earth appeared above the podium, slowly rotating. "Our planet features extreme climate variability, with temperatures ranging from -50 to +50 degrees Celsius in inhabited regions. We have hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and approximately 2,000 thunderstorms occurring at any given moment. Our oceans cover 71% of the surface and are largely unexplored, filled with creatures that have barely changed in hundreds of millions of years, because they're already perfect killing machines." The hologram zoomed in on Earth's oceans, displaying a selection of sharks, box jellyfish, and the recently discovered abyssal horrors that had made even the toughest xenobiologists squirm. "Our planetary biodiversity includes over 8.7 million species, with new ones discovered daily. Approximately 30,000 of these species are actively trying to kill us at any given time." General Kraz Thul's scales flickered in disbelief. "Exaggeration! No planet could support such biodiversity and remain habitable." Marcus stood up from his seat. "Actually, General, that number is considered conservative by Earth scientists. The actual number is likely much higher. We've explored less than 5% of our oceans, and new species are discovered in our rainforests every day." Alara continued. "Our planet has experienced 5 major extinction events in its history, and many scientists believe we're currently in the midst of a 6th, partially caused by us, I'll admit. But the point is, life on Earth adapts. It evolves. It survives. Even when that life is us fragile humans." The hologram shifted to display various natural disasters, hurricanes from space, towering tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. "But here's the thing." Alara's voice softened slightly, drawing the chamber in. "It's not just Earth's natural hazards that make it the ultimate death world. It's that we humans have added our own special touch to the mix." She paused for dramatic effect. Marcus had coached her on this. The pause was essential. Humans are the only known species to have nearly destroyed their own planet, multiple times. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated exclamations and arguments. The Arbiter's containment vessel pulsed rapidly, calling for order. "Clarify this claim, Commander," the Arbiter requested once the noise had subsided. "Gladly." Alara nodded to Marcus, who changed the holographic display. "Humans have created weapons capable of rendering entire continents uninhabitable. We've released chemicals into our atmosphere that altered our climate. We've driven countless species to extinction. We've polluted our waters and poisoned our soils." The images displayed were stark: nuclear test footage, oil spills, clear-cut forests. "And yet," she continued, her voice rising, "we've also developed medicines to combat diseases that once decimated our populations. We've created technologies to predict and mitigate natural disasters. We've learned to grow food in places nature never intended it to grow. We've even begun restoring damaged ecosystems and bringing species back from the brink of extinction. She gestured broadly to the assembled representatives. Name another species that actively works to counteract its own worst impulses, while simultaneously facing down a planet that seems designed to eliminate them at every turn. Ambassador Zixther's tentacles had stopped writhing. Are you suggesting, Commander, that humanity's qualification for the top Deathworld ranking is partially based on your own destructive nature? Alara smiled. This was the moment she'd been preparing for. Ambassador, I'm saying that Earth deserves the top ranking because we're the only planet where the dominant species had to evolve, not just against natural threats, but against self-inflicted ones. We're playing on hard mode, with extra challenges we programmed in ourselves. The chamber fell silent. Even General Krazathul's scales had settled into a thoughtful blue pattern. Let me offer some perspective, Alara continued. The Morgath evolved to breathe sulfuric acid because that's what's in their atmosphere. They didn't have a choice. The Dravari developed 12-inch retractable claws because their planet is filled with predators requiring such defenses. She spread her hands, showing her distinctly clawless fingers. But humans? We evolved as persistence hunters on the African savanna with minimal natural defenses, and then decided to spread to every ecological niche on our planet, including ones we are spectacularly unsuited for. Marcus activated the next set of images. Humans living in the Arctic, deep in rainforests, in scorching deserts, and in crowded megacities. We live in environments that should kill us within hours, and we do it by being stubborn and inventive. We climb mountains where the air is too thin to breathe, just because they're there. We dive into ocean depths that would crush our bodies, because we're curious. We launch ourselves into the vacuum of space, which is instantly lethal to us, because we want to see what's out there. She pointed to the various delegations around the room. The difference between humans and every other species in this alliance is that you all evolved perfect adaptations to your death worlds. You fit your environments like a key in a lock. We, on the other hand, looked at environments that should have killed us, said that looks interesting, and then invented ways to survive there anyway. A low murmur spread through the chamber as various species conferred with their delegations. The Arbiter's containment vessel swirled with increased activity. An unusual argument, Commander Frost, the Arbiter finally said. But the Alliance must consider objective criteria, not philosophical positions on evolutionary psychology. Alara nodded. Of course, Arbiter. Which is why I've saved our most compelling evidence for last. She gestured to Marcus, who sent a new file to the central holographic system. This is a comprehensive analysis of what makes Earth objectively the most dangerous inhabited planet by the Alliance's own metrics. The hologram displayed a series of comparative charts. Earth has more active tectonic activity than any inhabited world in the Alliance. Our planetary electromagnetic field fluctuates more dramatically than any registered planet. Our weather systems are more chaotic and less predictable. Our biodiversity, both beneficial and hostile, exceeds Alliance averages by 34%. She highlighted a particular section. And this is the kicker. Earth is the only inhabited planet in the Alliance that experiences all 27 categories of natural hazards listed in the Alliance classification system. Every single one. General Krazathul's scales turned a pale yellow, shock, if Marcus's xenobiology briefings were accurate. That cannot be possible. I assure you, General, it is, Alara replied. We're the only planet with the full set. It's like we've collected them all. From atmospheric electrical discharges to xenobiotic invasive species, Earth hits every category. We're the completionists of planetary death traps. The Arbiter's vessel approached the holographic display, tendrils of gas extending to examine the data more closely. This information appears to be accurate. Our verification systems confirm these measurements. Ambassador Zixther floated forward. Even if this data is accurate, it does not change the fact that humans remain physically inferior to many Alliance species. The Garthok can withstand radiation levels that would vaporize human tissue. The Calaxian can survive complete atmospheric pressure loss for up to 3 standard days. Alara smiled. Fair points, Ambassador. But may I ask, how many Garthok have summited Mount Everest without breathing assistance? How many Calaxians have free-dived to depths of over 100 meters using only their lungs? How many of either species have completed an Ironman triathlon? The Ambassador's tentacles twitched in confusion. I do not understand the relevance of these questions. The relevance is that humans routinely survive and even seek out conditions that should kill us. Not because we're physically superior, but because we're pathologically stubborn and creative. She gestured to the Earth delegation. Every human in this room has survived conditions that would kill most Alliance species, not through natural adaptation, but through sheer determination and ingenuity. Lieutenant Commander Wei stood up. I grew up in Singapore, where the average humidity is 84%, and temperature regularly exceeds 32 degrees Celsius. For reference, those conditions would cause fatal respiratory distress in 5 Alliance species represented here today. Another human delegate raised her hand. I'm from northern Canada. Winter temperatures where I lived regularly hit negative 40 degrees. I used to walk to school in it. General Krasthul's scales rippled. With specialized protective gear, surely. The delegate shrugged. A coat, boots, and a really good hat. Sometimes I'd forget my gloves and just put my hands in my pockets. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Alara took control of the conversation again. The point is, when ranking Deathworlds, the Alliance has traditionally focused on how well adapted a species is to their environment. I'm arguing that the true measure of a Deathworld should be how hostile that environment actually is. And by that metric, Earth wins by a landslide. The Arbiter's vessel pulsed thoughtfully. Your argument has merit, Commander Frost, but the final rankings must be determined by vote of the full Alliance. We shall proceed with deliberations. As Alara returned to her seat, Marcus leaned over. That was either brilliant, or we just talked ourselves out of the Galactic Economic Treaty. Little column A, little column B, she whispered back. But they're considering it. The deliberations lasted for what felt like an eternity. Earth's delegation used the time to consume alarming amounts of caffeine and field increasingly worried messages from United Earth Command. Finally, the Arbiter's vessel moved to the center of the chamber. The Alliance has reached a decision regarding the planetary rankings for this cycle. The chamber fell silent. Based on the presented evidence and subsequent verification by Alliance scientists, Earth has been officially classified as the #1 ranked Deathworld in the Alliance, effective immediately. The Earth delegation erupted in cheers while the rest of the chamber buzzed with a mixture of outrage, disbelief, and reluctant acknowledgement. The Arbiter continued. However, a special notation has been added to Earth's classification. Primary threat factor, indigenous dominant species. Congratulations, Earth representatives. You have successfully argued that your greatest planetary danger is yourselves. Marcus turned to Alara, his expression caught between triumph and horror. Did we just win by convincing the entire Galactic Alliance that humans are too dangerous to mess with? Alara grinned. Diplomacy at its finest, Lieutenant Commander. As the Earth delegation began receiving congratulations, some sincere, many begrudging, Ambassador Zixther approached. A clever stratagem, Commander, the Ambassador's translator crackled. But I wonder if you've considered the implications of your new status. The top-ranked Deathworld receives priority access to Alliance defense resources and technology exchanges, but also faces the most rigorous quarantine protocols and immigration restrictions. Alara's smile didn't waver. We're aware of the trade-offs, Ambassador, but we believe the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. Indeed. The Ambassador's tentacles curled thoughtfully. I must admit, your creative approach to this situation has given me a new perspective on humans. Perhaps your species' infamous reputation is not entirely undeserved. We aim to surprise, Ambassador. It's kind of our thing. As the Ambassador drifted away, General Krasthul approached, his scales now a grudging shade of purple respect. Commander Frost, the General's translated voice rumbled. The Saurian Imperium acknowledges Earth's new status, though we find it unexpected. Thank you, General. I must ask, however, was this your plan all along? To weaponize your own planetary history as a diplomatic tool? Alara exchanged a glance with Marcus before answering. Let's just say we played to our strengths, General. Which are? Making the best of bad situations and turning disadvantages into advantages. It's a human specialty. The General's scales flickered in what might have been amusement. The Saurian Imperium will be watching Earth's tenure as the top-ranked Deathworld with great interest. Should you require assistance managing your new responsibilities, we would be amenable to discussions. Translation. The Saurians weren't happy about losing their third-place ranking, but were already maneuvering for favorable relations with Earth now that they held the top spot. Politics never changed, even on a galactic scale. We appreciate the offer, General. I'm sure there will be much to discuss in the coming cycles. As the General departed, Marcus let out a long breath. So what now? Alara checked her datapad, which was already filling with congratulatory messages and meeting requests from species that had barely acknowledged humanity's existence before today. Now, she said, we deal with the consequences of success. 3 months after Earth's controversial ascension to the top of the Deathworld Alliance rankings, Commander Alara Frost found herself in the unenviable position of explaining to the United Earth Coalition Security Council exactly why being ranked number 1 was causing so many problems. In summary, she concluded, gesturing to the holographic display showing trade statistics, diplomatic incidents, and security reports, our new status has resulted in a 300% increase in technological exchange offers, a 450% increase in requests for military alliance consultations, and an 800% increase in what can only be described as galactic tourism to Earth. Admiral Layton, the grizzled head of Earth's Space Defense Force, scowled at the data. So we're now the galaxy's favorite death vacation destination? People are coming here for the thrill of possibly dying? Essentially, yes, Marcus confirmed from his position beside Alara. It's become something of a status symbol among certain species to say they visited Earth and survived. The more environmentally incompatible they are with our planet, the more prestige they gain. That explains the methane-breathing Voltraxians skiing in Colorado last week, muttered the Secretary of Global Affairs. One suit breach away from an interstellar incident. Precisely, Alara nodded. But that's not our biggest concern. The real issue is the increased attention from less friendly corners of the galaxy. Admiral Layton's scowl deepened. The Harvester Collective. The room tensed at the mention. The Harvesters were not officially part of the Alliance, or any recognized galactic governance structure. They were nomadic raiders who specialized in stripping valuable resources from planets, with little regard for indigenous life forms. Yes, Alara confirmed. Our intelligence suggests they're increasingly interested in Earth, not despite but because of its new classification. Our planet's extreme biodiversity represents a treasure trove of genetic material they could weaponize or sell to the highest bidder. Not to mention, Marcus added, certain elements within the Alliance itself who aren't thrilled with our new status. The Saurians have been particularly vocal about demanding verification visits to Earth's most dangerous locations. Admiral Layton snorted. They just want to prove we exaggerated. Which we didn't, Alara reminded everyone. If anything, we downplayed certain aspects to seem less boastful. The Secretary of Global Affairs leaned forward. So what do you recommend, Commander? Alara took a deep breath. This was the part that would either advance her career or end it. I propose Operation Home Field Advantage. We leverage our new status to secure defensive technology from Alliance members, establish a comprehensive planetary defense network, and implement controlled access protocols for visitors, all while maintaining the narrative that Earth is such a dangerous death world that these measures are standard practice for us. She gestured, and a new holographic display appeared, showing a complex network of orbital platforms, ground installations, and atmospheric defense systems. The beauty of this approach is that no one will question why the #1 death world has such extensive protective measures. They'll assume it's to contain Earth's dangers, not to protect against external threats. The room fell silent as the Security Council considered her proposal. And the cost? Admiral Layton finally asked. Marcus stepped forward. Initial projections suggest we can offset approximately 70% through increased trade agreements that our new status entitles us to. The remainder would require reallocation of existing defense budgets, but the return on investment is substantial. Another council member, Dr. Reyes of the Xenobiology Division, raised a hand. There's another factor to consider. Since our new ranking, research requests regarding Earth's biodiversity have increased exponentially. We could leverage these for additional resources. Alara nodded. Exactly. Earth's oceans alone contain compounds and organisms that pharmaceutical corporations across the galaxy would pay astronomical sums to study. We've only begun to explore those opportunities. Admiral Layton leaned back, his expression thoughtful. You've convinced me about the defensive advantages, Commander. But there's still one thing that concerns me. Sir? You've essentially advertised humanity as the most dangerous species in the Alliance. That's going to make some people very nervous, both here on Earth and out there. He gestured vaguely upward. Alara met his gaze steadily. With respect, Admiral, they should be nervous. Not because we intend any harm, but because for the first time since first contact, the rest of the galaxy is seeing humanity clearly. We're not just the plucky newcomers anymore. We're a force to be reckoned with on our terms. The Admiral held her gaze for a long moment before a slow smile spread across his weathered face. I've always said the best defense is a good reputation, Commander. Looks like you've secured us quite a reputation. Operation Home Field Advantage is approved, announced the Secretary. Commander Frost, Lieutenant Commander Wei, you'll oversee implementation. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus and Alara made their way to the observation deck overlooking Chicago's transformed skyline, now featuring architectural elements influenced by a dozen alien cultures. You realize, Marcus said quietly, that we've essentially enacted the most ambitious planetary defense initiative in Earth's history by convincing everyone that we're exactly what they feared all along. Alara watched an atmospheric shuttle carrying tourists from a gas giant world streak across the sky. Isn't that the most human thing you can imagine? Taking our worst qualities and turning them into our salvation? That's either profound or disturbing. Why not both? She smiled. Besides, we didn't lie. Earth is objectively dangerous. We just neglected to mention that we're also working on fixing a lot of the problems we created. Marcus leaned against the railing. So what's next on your diplomatic master plan? Now that we've secured the top spot, there will be challenges to our ranking next cycle. Oh, I'm counting on it, Alara said, her smile widening. In fact, I'm planning to concede the top spot next year. What? After all that work to get it? She turned to face him fully. Think about it. We secure all the benefits this year. The technology exchanges, the defense treaties, the economic partnerships. Then next year, we graciously step aside, citing our commitment to improving Earth's environmental conditions. Making us appear both formidable and magnanimous, Marcus realized, shaking his head in admiration. Brilliant. But who takes our place? I'm thinking the Dravari. They've been very helpful in the planetary defense consultations, and their homeworld is genuinely nightmarish. Plus, they're natural allies against the Harvester Collective. So we create an alliance of our own, Marcus nodded. A coalition of the deadliest planets. Exactly. It's not about being number one forever. It's about changing the game entirely. She gestured to the skyline. Humanity's greatest strength isn't that we evolved on a death world. It's that we never accept limitations as permanent. As they watched the sun setting over the city, casting alien architectural features in golden light, a notification chimed on Alara's datapad. Ambassador Zixthar is requesting an urgent meeting, she read. Apparently, a delegation of Morgath adolescents snuck away from their tour group to try swimming in Lake Michigan. They were rescued by human lifeguards who dove in without protective gear. Marcus winced. Are the lifeguards all right? Hospitalized with minor chemical burns, but expected to recover fully. Alara shook her head. The Morgath are apparently deeply impressed by human bravery in the face of incompatible biochemistry and want to establish a cultural exchange program. So our plan is working. Better than expected. The Morgath were among our strongest critics in the Alliance. Marcus gestured toward the datapad. Shall we go meet the ambassador? Absolutely, but first... Alara pulled a small flask from her uniform pocket. A toast to Earth. The #1 death world not because it's trying to kill us, but because we refuse to let it. They clinked the flask against Marcus's travel mug of tea. To humanity, Marcus added. The species too stubborn to know when we're supposed to die. To humanity, Alara agreed. Earth's most persistent problem and its greatest solution. 1 year later, the Deathworld Alliance convened for its annual ranking ceremony. Commander Alara Frost, now Admiral Frost following her successful implementation of Operation Home Field Advantage, stood at the central podium, addressing the assembled delegates. Distinguished representatives of the Alliance, 1 year ago Earth assumed the position of highest-ranked Death World. Today, I stand before you to relinquish that title. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. This was unprecedented. No species had ever voluntarily surrendered the top ranking. In the past year, Earth has benefited tremendously from Alliance membership. We've established new defense systems, expanded our technological capabilities, and formed valuable partnerships. She nodded respectfully toward the Dravari and Morgath delegations. We've also made significant progress in addressing some of our planet's self-inflicted environmental challenges, thereby technically reducing our Deathworld metrics. This was, Marcus knew, a carefully crafted half-truth. Earth had indeed made environmental improvements, but nowhere near enough to affect their ranking. This was strategic diplomacy at its finest. Therefore, Admiral Frost continued, Earth respectfully withdraws from consideration for the top ranking, though we remain committed to active participation in the Alliance. The Arbiter's vessel swirled with visible confusion. This is highly irregular, Admiral. No procedural framework exists for such a withdrawal. General Krasthul, whose scales now displayed a pattern of deep suspicion, stepped forward. The Saurian Imperium questions the motivation behind this unprecedented action. What advantage does Earth seek to gain? Admiral Frost smiled pleasantly. No advantage, General. Only the acknowledgement that rankings should reflect current realities. Our analysis suggests that the Dravari homeworld now objectively qualifies as the most dangerous inhabited planet, following the recent awakening of their southern supervolcano chain. The Dravari High Commander, a towering insectoid with gleaming chitin armor, clicked her mandibles in what passed for agreement among her species. The Admiral speaks truth. 3 of our continental shelves now experience perpetual ashfall. Our atmosphere has achieved new toxicity records. It is most impressive. Marcus, watching from the Earth delegation's seats, suppressed a smile. The environmental catastrophe on the Dravari homeworld was indeed real, but far less severe than the High Commander implied. The Dravari had quickly grasped the advantages of Earth's diplomacy strategy and become eager partners. Admiral Frost gestured graciously to the Dravari delegation. We would fully support the Dravari claim to the top ranking, should the Alliance vote accordingly. Ambassador Zixthar's tentacles twisted in subtle patterns that Marcus had learned to recognize as amusement. The ambassador had become something of an ally over the past year, particularly after Earth provided crucial assistance during a meteor shower that threatened his homeworld. The Alliance must wonder, the ambassador's translator crackled, if this magnanimous gesture from Earth might conceal deeper strategic motivations. I assure you, Ambassador, Earth's motivations are transparent, Admiral Frost replied smoothly. We simply believe in recognizing genuine achievement, such as surviving on a planet where the very air ignites during certain seasonal changes. She nodded respectfully toward the Dravari High Commander. The chamber erupted in discussions as various delegations conferred. Marcus made his way to Admiral Frost's side as she stepped down from the podium. They're buying it, he whispered. The Morgath and Voltraxians are already pledging support for the Dravari. And the Saurians? Still suspicious, but they can't openly oppose without seeming petty. Admiral Frost nodded slightly. Phase 1 complete. Now for Phase 2. The Arbiter called for order as deliberations concluded. The Alliance has reached a decision. In light of Earth's withdrawal and verified environmental changes on Dravax Prime, the Dravari homeworld is hereby ranked as the #1 Deathworld, effective immediately. Polite applause filled the chamber as the Dravari High Commander accepted the ceremonial recognition. As tradition dictated, the new top-ranked world's representative was granted the right to address the Alliance. The High Commander's mandibles clicked rapidly as she spoke, her translator converting the sounds into the Alliance's common language. The Dravari hives accept this recognition with appropriate gravity. As the new stewards of the top ranking, we propose the formation of a Deathworld Defense Council, a specialized body comprising the top 5 ranked worlds, tasked with collective security against external threats. And there it was. The true objective of Earth's year-long diplomatic campaign, proposed not by humans but by their carefully cultivated allies. General Krasthul's scales flashed with alarm. Such a council would wield disproportionate influence within the Alliance. This is clearly an Earth-inspired initiative. The Dravari High Commander's compound eyes fixed on the General. The Saurian Imperium currently ranks 4th. You would be included in this council, General. Do you wish to decline this opportunity? Trapped by his own ambition, the General's scales settled into a pattern of reluctant acquiescence. The Saurian Imperium recognizes the potential benefits of such a council. Within hours, the Deathworld Defense Council was approved by majority vote. Earth, despite voluntarily surrendering the top spot, secured a permanent position as a founding member. As the session adjourned, Admiral Frost and Marcus found themselves approached by Ambassador Zixthar. A masterful display of what humans call chess, Admiral, the ambassador's translator conveyed, his tentacles curling in appreciation. You sacrificed your queen to control the board. Admiral Frost smiled. I'm not sure I follow your metaphor, Ambassador. Of course not. The ambassador's bioluminescent spots pulsed with what could only be described as knowing amusement. Just as you did not spend the past year cultivating alliances specifically for this moment, and just as the Dravari did not coordinate their proposal with Earth in advance. Marcus maintained a carefully neutral expression, though internally he marveled at the ambassador's perceptiveness. The formation of a defense council benefits all Alliance members, Ambassador, Admiral Frost replied diplomatically. The Harvester Collective grows bolder by the day. Unity is our strongest defense. Indeed. The ambassador's tentacles waved dismissively. My species has a saying. The deepest currents move without disturbing the surface. Earth has demonstrated remarkable depth since joining our alliance. As the ambassador glided away, Marcus turned to Admiral Frost. I think that was a compliment. In a roundabout way. She checked her datapad, which displayed a confirmation message from the Dravari High Commander. The Council's first meeting is scheduled for next month, on Earth. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Home field advantage again? Always. Admiral Frost smiled. I'm thinking we host it in Australia. Show them some of our friendlier wildlife. You have a strange definition of friendly, Marcus laughed. By Deathworld standards, our wildlife is practically cuddly. She gestured toward the departing delegates. Look at what we've accomplished in just 1 year. From galactic newcomers to founding members of the most powerful security coalition in Alliance history. All because we convinced everyone that our greatest weakness, our self-destructive tendencies, was actually our greatest strength. Admiral Frost's expression grew more serious. That's the thing about humans, Marcus. Our greatest weaknesses and our greatest strengths are often the same thing. Our stubbornness nearly destroyed our planet. Now it's saving it. Together, they watched as the various species of the Alliance filed out of the chamber, many casting curious or respectful glances toward the Earth delegation. You know, Marcus said quietly, a year ago, half of these species wouldn't acknowledge our existence. Now they're looking to us for leadership. Not leadership, Admiral Frost corrected. Partnership. That's the real lesson here. On a galactic scale, no single species can dominate forever. But the species that learns to turn adversity into advantage, to transform competition into cooperation. Sounds suspiciously like wisdom, Admiral. She laughed. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation as a ruthless tactical genius to maintain. As they prepared to depart, Admiral Frost paused to look back at the now empty chamber. 1 year ago, we came here desperate to prove Earth belonged among the elite Deathworlds. Today, we voluntarily stepped back and somehow gained more influence than before. Very human of us, Marcus agreed. Very human indeed. She smiled. Let's go home. We have a galaxy-changing alliance to build, and I want to show these Deathworld diplomats why you should never swim in the Northern Territory during wet season. 6 months later, the newly formed Deathworld Defense Council convened in its purpose-built headquarters in the red heart of Australia. The location had been chosen with deliberate intent, remote enough to minimize civilian interaction with potentially dangerous alien visitors, yet showcasing one of Earth's most extreme environments. The Uluru Complex, as it had been named, merged human architecture with advanced environmental technologies from across the Alliance. The central chamber maintained 5 distinct atmospheric bubbles for the comfort of each council species, while still allowing direct visual contact. It was a testament to interspecies cooperation and a subtle reminder of human ingenuity. Admiral Frost stood at the observation window overlooking the vast red desert, watching as a dust storm approached on the horizon. Behind her, the council members were engaged in heated debate about the proposed joint military exercises. The simulation parameters are unacceptable, General Krasithul was saying, his scales flickering in frustration. No Saurian battalion would retreat under those conditions. The Dravari High Commander's mandibles clicked rapidly. The scenario reflects statistical probabilities based on previous encounters with harvester forces. Tactical withdrawal preserves fighting capacity. Perhaps, the Morgath representative gurgled through their environmental suit. We should consider the human approach to the simulation. Their forces demonstrate unusual flexibility in their tactical responses. All eyes turned to Admiral Frost, who smiled as she rejoined the table. The human approach is simple, representatives. We assume we're going to lose, then figure out how to win anyway. Paradoxical, the Voltraxian delegate hissed through their methane respirator. But effective, Marcus added from his position at the data terminal. Our military history is filled with examples of inferior forces defeating superior ones through adaptability and unconventional tactics. The holographic display at the center of the table shifted to show the proposed joint exercise scenario, a simulated harvester incursion into a populated system. The key, Admiral Frost explained, isn't trying to match the harvester's technological advantages. It's exploiting the one thing they never expect, cooperation between species they consider rivals. The council members exchanged glances. Despite months of working together, old competitive instincts died hard. The Dravari hives do not naturally cooperate with other species. the High Commander noted, though her tone lacked the dismissiveness it might have held a year earlier. Neither do humans, frankly, Admiral Frost replied with disarming honesty. Our history is filled with tribal conflicts and resource wars. But we've learned, sometimes the hard way, that cooperation against a common threat provides advantages that no single group can achieve alone. She gestured to the approaching dust storm visible through the window. Earth taught us that lesson. No matter how advanced our civilization became, we remained vulnerable to our planet's whims. Only by working together could we survive its challenges. An elegant metaphor, the Morgath representative acknowledged. But metaphors do not win battles against Harvester dreadnoughts. No, Admiral Frost agreed, but this might. She nodded to Marcus, who activated a new holographic display. The image showed a fleet of ships unlike any the Council had seen before, each vessel incorporating distinct elements from all 5 Council species' technologies. The Chimera Fleet, Admiral Frost announced. Joint-designed, jointly crewed, with integrated systems that combine the strengths of all our technologies while mitigating individual weaknesses. General Krazathul's scales shifted to a deep blue of surprise and interest. These designs, they incorporate Saurian plasma arc technology, but modified to function with Dravari crystalline focusing arrays, and Morgath corrosion-resistant hull composites, the Morgath representative added, their translator conveying genuine excitement, with what appears to be human-designed adaptive configuration protocols. Plus Voltraxian sensor arrays that can function in dimensional spaces the Harvesters consider secure, the Voltraxian delegate observed. Most innovative. Admiral Frost allowed the Council members to study the designs. This is just the beginning. Earth proposes a full technology-sharing initiative between Council members. Not just defensive systems, but medical, environmental, and civilian technologies as well. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Such comprehensive cooperation between species had never been attempted in the Alliance's history. Why? The Dravari High Commander finally asked, her compound eyes fixed on Admiral Frost. Why would Earth willingly share technologies that could eventually be used against human interests? It was the question that had lingered unspoken since Earth's diplomatic maneuvers began. Admiral Frost had been expecting it. Because we understand something that the Harvesters don't, she said quietly. Something that took humans centuries of conflict to learn ourselves. And that is? General Krazathul prompted. That the universe is a big enough threat on its own. We don't need to compete with each other when cosmic indifference is already trying to kill us all. She gestured to the observation window, where the dust storm now obscured the horizon completely. Out there, beyond our atmospheres and gravitational wells, is an emptiness that doesn't care whether any of us survive. The only logical response is to stand together. Marcus watched the Council members' reactions carefully. This was the moment they'd been working toward, the shift from a tactical alliance to a strategic partnership. The Morgath representative was the first to respond. The Morgath Communion finds this perspective compelling. We have occupied our current evolutionary niche for millennium, yet we have advanced less than humans have in mere centuries. Perhaps there is wisdom in your approach. One by one, the other Council members signaled agreement. Even General Krazathul's scales settled into a pattern of reluctant acceptance. The technology-sharing initiative is approved in principle, the Dravari High Commander declared, speaking as the Council's current chair. Implementation details to be determined by specialized working groups. As the meeting adjourned and the various representatives retired to their specially designed quarters within the complex, Marcus joined Admiral Frost at the observation window. They agreed more quickly than we anticipated, he noted. Particularly the Saurians. The General isn't stupid, Admiral Frost replied. He recognizes the shifting balance of power. Better to be our partner than our competitor. And the real reason for the initiative? Are you going to tell them? Admiral Frost watched as the dust storm enveloped the complex completely, reducing visibility to 0. Eventually, when they're ready to hear it. The real reason, as they both knew, wasn't just about defending against the Harvesters. Earth's scientists had detected troubling anomalies at the edge of explored space, evidence of something far more concerning than nomadic raiders. Something ancient and vast that made the Harvesters look like an inconvenience by comparison. Do you think they'll be ready in time? Marcus asked quietly. Admiral Frost's expression remained confident, though her eyes betrayed concern. They'll have to be. Just like humanity had to evolve quickly, or perish, the Alliance will adapt or fall. And I intend to make sure we adapt. She turned away from the window as her datapad chimed with an incoming transmission from Earth Command. Come on, the next phase begins now. Which is? Teaching the galaxy's deadliest species how to play nice together. She smiled grimly. If we can get 5 apex predator civilizations to share technology and resources, we might just stand a chance against what's coming. As they walked through the complex's corridors, passing environmental seals and security checkpoints designed to accommodate beings evolved for entirely different worlds, Marcus reflected on how far humanity had come in such a short time. You know, he said, when you first proposed claiming the top Deathworld ranking, I thought it was just a diplomatic power play. It was, Admiral Frost admitted, initially. But I've come to realize something important about humanity's place in the galaxy. What's that? We're not special because we survived Earth. We're special because we never stopped trying to survive, even when logic said we should have gone extinct a dozen times over. She paused at a viewport showing the Dravari ship hangars, where insectoid engineers were already examining human shuttle designs with obvious interest. That's what the rest of the Alliance needs to learn from us. Not our technology or our tactics, but our absurd, illogical optimism in the face of cosmic horror. Marcus laughed softly. Is that what we're calling it now? I always thought of it as stubborn stupidity. Same thing, different perspective. Admiral Frost grinned. And perspective is everything when you're trying to change the galaxy. Outside, the dust storm continued to rage, Earth showing off one of its milder temper tantrums to its extraterrestrial guests. Inside, representatives of 5 species that would have gladly destroyed each other a year ago were cautiously beginning to cooperate. And somewhere beyond the edge of explored space, something ancient stirred, unaware that the universe's most improbable survivors were preparing to meet it head-on. Earth might no longer hold the title of #1 Deathworld, but humanity had never needed a ranking to know what they were. The species too stubborn to die, too curious to stay home, and too optimistic to accept the inevitable. In other words, the perfect species to lead a coalition of monsters against the darkness between the stars. 3 years later, Admiral Ilara Frost stood on the bridge of the DWS Tenacity, flagship of the newly commissioned Chimera fleet. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the swirling nebula that marked the edge of explored space, and beyond it, the anomaly that had first been detected by Earth's deep space monitoring network. All ships report ready, Admiral. Marcus reported from his station, now wearing the insignia of a full commander. The Dravari and Saurian vessels have taken position on our flanks. Morgath and Voltraxian ships are maintaining the rear guard. Excellent. Admiral Frost studied the tactical display. 5 years ago, the idea of a joint fleet with integrated command structures would have been unthinkable. Now, it was reality. 30 ships crewed by representatives of all 5 Council species, with humans serving as the connective tissue that held the unlikely alliance together. The bridge itself reflected this new paradigm. While predominantly designed for human ergonomics, it featured specialized stations for each Council species. A Dravari tactical officer clicked her mandibles thoughtfully at the weapons console. A Saurian navigation specialist, his scales a focused shade of blue, plotted their course through the nebula. A Morgath science officer analyzed incoming data through a specialized interface, while a Voltraxian communications expert monitored subspace frequencies. Signal from Earth Command, announced the communications officer. Final authorization received. Operation Lighthouse is a go. Admiral Frost took a deep breath. This moment represented the culmination of years of careful diplomacy, technological integration, and trust building. They were about to venture into truly unknown territory, seeking confirmation of what their long-range sensors had detected. Evidence of a vast, ancient intelligence unlike anything in Alliance records. Open a channel to the fleet, she ordered. When the channel indicator lit, she addressed the assembled ships. Crews of the Chimera fleet, this is Admiral Frost. In moments, we will cross the boundary into unexplored space. Our mission is clear. Investigate the anomaly, establish contact if possible, and assess whether it represents a threat to Alliance worlds. She paused, looking around at the mixed-species bridge crew. 3 years ago, many believed this endeavor impossible. 5 different species evolved on 5 different Deathworlds working as a unified force. The odds were against us. But if there's one thing all our species share, it's this. We don't accept impossible odds. We were all shaped by worlds that tried to kill us, and we all refused to die. The tactical display updated, showing the fleet formation moving into final approach positions. Whatever awaits us beyond the nebula, remember this. We are the descendants of survivors. We are the children of Deathworlds, and together we are stronger than any single species could ever be. She nodded to Commander Wei. Signal the fleet to advance. Standard formation, alert status yellow. As the Chimera fleet moved forward into the swirling gases of the nebula, Admiral Frost felt a strange sense of completion. Earth had come full circle, from desperate newcomers trying to prove their worth, to leaders of the most powerful alliance in known space. The nebula's gases parted before them, sensors penetrating the cosmic fog to reveal what lay beyond. And there it was, a structure of impossible scale, clearly artificial yet unlike anything built by known civilizations. It pulsed with energy patterns that defied conventional analysis, extending tendrils of what might be data or matter, or something else entirely into the surrounding space. All ships, hold position, Admiral Frost ordered immediately. Full sensor sweep, passive modes only. The bridge fell silent as the data began streaming in. The Morgath science officer was the first to speak, their translator conveying a tone of awe. It's alive, Admiral. Not biologically, but the energy patterns suggest a form of consciousness. And it's old, incredibly old. How old? Commander Wei asked. The Saurian navigator's scales paled. Based on stellar drift calculations, billions of your Earth years. It may predate our species' evolutions. Admiral Frost studied the readings carefully. Is it aware of us? As if in answer, a pulse of energy rippled from the structure, washing over the fleet harmlessly but unmistakably deliberate. I believe that's a yes, Commander Wei murmured. The communications station suddenly lit up with activity. The Voltraxian officer's environmental suit vented excess methane in what their species considered a sign of excitement. Incoming transmission, Admiral! On all frequencies simultaneously, adapted to each ship's native communication protocols. Put it through, Admiral Frost ordered, straightening her uniform. For a moment there was only static. Then a voice, neither male nor female, neither mechanical nor organic, but something else entirely, filled the bridge. Children of adversity, you have come at last. The translator system struggled momentarily before stabilizing, suggesting the entity was communicating in concepts rather than language. Admiral Frost exchanged glances with Commander Wei before responding. This is Admiral Ilara Frost of the Deathworld Alliance. We greet you in peace and seek to understand your nature and purpose. A pause, as if the entity was considering her words, or perhaps the very concept of words. Understanding is mutual goal. You are unique convergence, 5 paths that should not intersect, yet do. The tactical display flickered, suddenly showing not the fleet formation, but images of all 5 Council homeworlds. Earth with its blue oceans and swirling clouds, the volcanic hellscape of Dravax Prime, the acid seas of the Morgath world, the methane ice caps of the Voltraxian planet, and the radiation-bathed deserts of the Saurian homeworld. Each crucible different, each result similar. Adaptation, survival, cooperation, pattern unexpected. Admiral Frost felt a chill run down her spine. This entity had been watching them, perhaps for longer than their civilizations had existed. Why have you revealed yourself to us now? She asked. The entity's response came with a new set of images. Vast, dark shapes moving between stars, consuming entire systems. Not the harvesters, something far worse. Greater challenge approaches. Greater adaptation required. You are prepared. Commander Wei stepped forward. Are you saying we're about to face a threat that makes the harvesters look insignificant? Correct. They flee before it, as others have fled before them. Cycle continues. And you want us to fight this threat? Admiral Frost asked. Why not reveal yourself to it directly? The entity's response carried a hint of what might have been amusement. I am observer, recorder, not intervener. But you, children of worlds that should have killed you, you intervene. You resist. You adapt. A new image appeared on the display, the Chimera fleet, but larger, more integrated, more powerful. Cooperation is your adaptation, unexpected solution, worthy of observation. Admiral Frost understood suddenly. This ancient entity was not a god or a savior, it was a witness. It had watched countless civilizations rise and fall across billions of years, but something about the Deathworld Alliance had caught its attention. You want to help us prepare, she stated rather than asked. Correct. Knowledge offered. Technology shared. Choice remains yours. The communications officer reported excitedly. Admiral, we're receiving data streams on all channels, technical specifications, star charts, historical records. It's more information than our systems can process. The entity's voice continued, now addressed to all 5 species represented on the bridge. You who evolved in fire and acid, in radiation and pressure, in predation and competition. You who should have destroyed each other. Instead you build together. This is new. This is worthy. Admiral Frost took a moment to consider the magnitude of what was happening. An entity older than their civilizations was offering knowledge that could transform the Alliance, but also confirming that a threat of unimaginable scale was approaching. She thought back to that first diplomatic meeting years ago, when Earth had boldly claimed the top spot in the Deathworld rankings through a combination of honesty and strategic exaggeration. How far they had come since then. From competitors to allies, from suspicious strangers to a unified force. We accept your knowledge, she finally said, and we will face what comes. Not because we seek conflict, but because that's what Deathworlders do. We survive. The entity's response seemed to carry a note of satisfaction. As it should be. Watch and learn. Children of adversity. The greatest test approaches. As the data continued to stream into their systems, revealing secrets of the universe that would take generations to fully understand, Admiral Frost turned to the mixed species bridge crew. Send word to the Alliance. Priority Alpha. Tell them. She paused, finding the right words. Tell them that the universe just got a lot bigger, a lot more dangerous, and a lot more interesting. And tell them that the Deathworld Alliance is ready. Commander Wei smiled slightly. Very human of you, Admiral. Facing cosmic horror with optimism. Not just human, she corrected, gesturing to their alien colleagues, each showing their species' equivalent of determined focus. It's a Deathworlder thing. Beyond the viewport, the ancient entity pulsed with energy, a silent witness to this unlikely alliance of survivors. And somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, something was coming. Something that had sent the harvesters fleeing. Something that had ended civilizations before. But it had never encountered Deathworlders working together before. It had never faced humans and their equally stubborn allies. And if there was one thing Admiral Alara Frost knew with absolute certainty, it was this. Species evolved on worlds that tried to kill them didn't accept extinction easily. The universe might be dark and full of terrors, but Deathworlders had been dealing with terrors since they first crawled out of their evolutionary cradles. What was one more cosmic horror to species that had survived their own planet's best attempts to wipe them out? Just another Tuesday in the life of a Deathworlder. And for the first time in billions of years, the ancient entity watched with something approaching anticipation. The children of adversity had grown up. The real test was about to begin. The end.